Welcome everyone to Fraud Fact Friday. This is actually my final Fraud Fact Friday post of the year. So make sure you take a minute to read my little rhyme, holiday rhyme up above. If you're watching on LinkedIn, maybe down below if you're on YouTube. But to sum it up, I just wanted to thank everyone for participating and engaging with the Fraud Fact Friday series. It started out as a text post type of thing on LinkedIn, then we moved into video. Now we're doing live broadcasts. And again, the goal of Fraud Fact Friday is to just exchange best practice fraud fighting tips to encourage conversation and awareness around the topic of fraud. The world can definitely use a little less fraud, and my hope is that this platform can help contribute to that. So what I want to do is highlight, I had 6 guests on the live broadcast, so I'd like to highlight some of my favorite moments. And starting, of course, with Dr. Fraud, who was so generous to be the first guest on a kind of pilot type of show. And we had a lot of fun. We covered a tough question, for example, whether or not fraudsters are good people just making bad decisions. And this was his answer. Let me pull it up here. Well, this was part of his answer.
But the second question, right, is right. There's the other group, the opportunistic folks. Where is their core? What I will say is, I draw on some research, that I feel is very significant, focusing on how 30% of people are honest, 30 are dishonest, and 40 are in the middle. That situational honesty. So think about it. You have 70% of the population that could be skewed, right, at any point in time.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting conversation. We talked about some of the other insights he's gained over the last several months from being on the road, fighting crime internationally, financial crime. It's definitely a fun episode. I will link in the post to the YouTube channel. Again, if you're viewing on LinkedIn, so you can see the entire series, all the episodes I'm going to show here. My second one was with Roy, and we talked about machine learning. And I asked him, for example, to share some of his top tips for getting started with machine learning in the fraud fighting space. And this was one of them.
Make sure that you know what exactly you want to achieve. So, for instance, I want to detect fraud in the cards area, or I want to detect fraud in the internet banking area, or
tackle everything at once.
Yeah. Exactly. And then to say, okay, then take only the data which is relevant for that to this, and feed this kind of data to the machine in order to be trained and to create a model. And it's, as I said, it's about choosing the right data set for the right application and so on.
Yeah, this was, again, a very interesting interview where we also looked at some of the basics, the differences between AI and machine learning, some methods that companies can use to apply machine learning to fighting fraud. It was definitely a fun conversation. Following Roy, I had Christina on the show, the gray collar crime expert, and we talked about, of course, gray collar crime, but also the flip side, elder fraud, and as Christina puts it, the 2 shades of gray.
I don't want the audience out there and everybody who knows how I train on this topic to think I'm out to pick on old people, calling them all criminals, which is really not the case. It's really just to bring awareness to this fact because of this, internal conscious or unconscious bias we have about aging. But on the other hand, I call it 2 shades of gray. Okay. And yes, I have done training for the senior community on how to protect themselves from fraudulent schemes on the internet, also how to protect themselves from their smart devices.
Yeah, Christina definitely provided some great tips for investigating gray collar crime as well. Another great episode to watch. Then I had Kelly on, the pink collar crime expert, and we talked about some factors that could lead to pink collar crime, and this was one that Kelly mentioned.
If you have a really cruddy tone at the top, it's easier for them to rationalize the theft. I will show an example of a business owner who goes, say, on a business vacation or a business trip, brings their family along. They come back, they hand the $20,000 Black American Express bill to the office manager, and the office manager will say, well, I know you took your family. How do you want me to break this out? And the business owner will say,
A cliffhanger. So what does the owner say if there's a cruddy tone at the top? Let's find out.
It's none of your business. Just pay it all.
Mm.
And right then, that business manager knows that the owner is stealing by not paying taxes. And so it can take, 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, even 6 years. And all of a sudden they're like, I want to go to the beach. I'm not going to the West. I'm just going to the local beach, but I want to spend a couple nights. What's a couple $100? They stole.
Yeah. So again, very informative interview on pink collar crime, some of the motivations, some ways to detect it within your business. Another great one to check out. After Kelly, I had Joe on the show, and Joe was asked by one of the viewers on the live show how you can trust information from the internet, and this was Joe's response.
Yeah, that's a fabulous question. You can't trust information from the internet.
Okay.
And that's, I think, probably one of the biggest things I try to talk about in my classes is validation. Anything that you see, whether it's an image or a video, they're just pixels. They're just colors on a canvas. They mean absolutely nothing unless you can make some connections to that and show that it's factual.
Yeah, very insightful answer from Joe. We also talked about what's behind the hashtag data lies everywhere. We talked about digital footprints, another fun one to watch. And then most recently, I interviewed Matt, and we were talking cybersecurity, fraud fighting, and I asked Matt to share some things that every company should have on their cybersecurity radar. And these are some of his insights.
My number one thing is advocating employee training. It's just educating them on the simple, basic, it's like security 101 stuff. So things like, don't just click links because someone sends you a free gift card if you do, right? Or have a really strong password. Now, a lot of people think that a strong password has to be random characters, and that's not true at all.
This episode was definitely filled with some great password tips and other great insights into the field of cybersecurity. So a special thank you to those that said, hey, no problem. I'm going to go live. I'm going to try it out. It really helped contribute to the Fraud Fact Friday platform. And lastly, I would also like to thank Tammy Rockholt and Mike Fossey for sharing their knowledge in the medical billing fraud space, where we did a video series. This was also very, very informative. So be sure to check that out, also on the YouTube channel. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. I look forward to coming back in January for some more Fraud Fact Friday live episodes. Be sure to write me here on LinkedIn if you're interested in being on an episode. Thank you. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.